Hi, my name is Lisa Pino. I'm a Latina role model. I am a student at the University of Central Florida, graduating with her communication degree in December. My advice to students is to stay focused, stay dedicated, and don't let challenges bring you down.
It is not about the goal, it is about the road. Remember to keep dreaming, live genuinely, and never stop dreaming. Pursue your dreams, but enjoy the moment.
Good evening. Welcome to another segment of EduTV. I am your host, Greg Perkins, and we'd like to welcome aboard our co-host, Lisa Garrigas. Welcome,
Hello,
Lisa.
Greg. Hello.
Yes, folks, you are going to be in for a treat tonight after this segment, giving parents a helpful things that they can do to help their kid to become better readers. So, Lisa, Common Core standards. Kids are reading at 3 now. I don't know, discovering or building rockets in grade 4. What are some of the things that parents can do with their kids to help them to develop a love of learning and to teach them to read even before entering kindergarten?
Well, I am glad that you asked that, Greg, because reading is a very important component for life. I believe that reading is the foundation of all learning, as it does require them to be able to later in different grade levels apply what they know in math and science and in everything else. So if a child is struggling in reading, more than likely later in life they are going to struggle in another subject area. So what I would suggest for parents, families at home is to first start getting excited about reading. Even if it is something that you are not necessarily excited about, I would just practice being excited, taking trips.
So much in the way that a father would get in the yard and throw a football or a baseball with the son, that we need to read to children daily and to model how it's done so they can develop a love of reading.
Exactly. So reading with your child daily would be helpful, and while you're reading to your child, even before your child knows how to read on their own, ask them questions before the story, during and after, just to see that they're comprehending what you're even reading. Ask them questions on how they could apply it to the real world. And so that's going to be very important for them. The more you practice it, the more it becomes a habit for both the parent and the child. At the same time, you're building a bond with your child, and you're building that relationship so that they're excited because mom and dad's excited about it. They go to school and their teacher's excited about it. So now it becomes this natural, exciting thing where reading is fun.
Yeah, because I had done some research and it was interesting. How does reading take place? Okay, the kid, they learn the ABCs, but tell me, Lisa, why kids start with ABCs and then from there they maybe move to sight words, and then from there maybe rhyming words. So tell me about that process in simple parenting terms. Why are those things so important for building the foundation of reading?
Okay, with reading, some kids do not attend preschool as they are not required to. So when children come into kindergarten, they're at all levels. And although that's okay, because as a teacher we are required to teach them the things that they need to know, it's helpful if they come in with prior knowledge.
Okay.
What I would suggest is starting off with the alphabet, letter recognition, sound recognition, making sure that little Johnny knows how to recognize letters, not specifically based off of memorization, because they know how to sing the ABCs. It's something that they've been hearing ever since they were.
But that A actually means ape or apple. So parents need to model those types of different sounds that A's makes with ABCs.
Yes, well that goes into another topic that I want to answer.
Okay. Yeah, so we're talking about phonics first, right? Phonemic awareness, and then learning how to spell, and then actually that those words have meaning. So through that, so what if I'm reading to a child and there's a word that's too large? Should I keep going and assume that my child understands what's going, or should I stop and say, hey, do you understand what this word means? What do I do at that point?
Are you reading the word, or is the child
I'm reading to the child, but I know in my head there may be a word that I think that I haven't taught my child, so my child does not know that word.
Well, there are many ways to do it. One suggestion would be to review the vocabulary before you actually read the story.
Oh, okay.
So you can preview the pictures, and that's another way to get them excited to read, where you can get them excited to know what they're reading about, or even give them a purpose for reading. So you might want to say something like, let's find out what happens to Johnny in the story, because in this picture, he looks sad. You know, by asking your child what is happening in the picture, he may even be able to tell you, well, Johnny's sad because Johnny's crying. I see tears. And so they start using pictures to build concepts. So what I would suggest is to preview the content.
Okay.
But even before that, another suggestion in getting them excited to read and in developing their mind as early readers would be, after recognizing letters and sounds, would be practicing sight words. We also
sight
call
words.
them
What are sight words?
Dolch words. Sight words are words that you can see right away. So a lot of times you may see them on flashcards. A lot of stores sell them. You can even create your own. And so you have maybe a flashcard with a word, and does my child know how to read it right away without sounding it out? Whereas if the word was cat and they take a while, they look at CAT's at. Now, if the word is there, THEIR, it doesn't always follow the rules to reading because you have the vowel teams and all of that.
So with the word cat, they should say cat. They should say cat and immediately recognize that word. Is that what a sight word is?
Right, and most sight words would be you, there, see, and, or. It's the words that they would see mostly when they read. So if your child is familiar with the most popular sight words or the most commonly used words, then when they start reading, even though they don't necessarily know how to read yet, it gives them motivation to read. It gives them confidence. They know that word, so they want to keep going. And the more words they know, the easier it is for them to understand it when they're reading. And so after that, that's when I would suggest having your child work on what we call CVC words, consonant, vowel, consonant, which are words like cat and dog, where they can actually blend them because they follow the rules of the sounds that they learned in the alphabet.
So what I've heard you share with parents, getting the kids learn how to read so far: number one, read to your child daily and model reading so that the kid develops a love for reading. Number two, teach the child the alphabet. Are we okay? So parents, you're gonna read to your kids, children daily. You're gonna teach them the alphabet. And then number three, we talked about sight words. So now it looks like, Lisa, we are on CVC. CVC words, go. What are they? What is it?
CVC words are three-letter words where you have a consonant, a vowel, and a consonant, like cat. C is a consonant, A is a vowel, and T is a consonant. So when you put them together, they follow the rules of reading, where the child already recognizes that C, the sound that C makes is K, the sound A makes is A, and the sound that T makes is T.
If my child does not recognize cat right away, is it okay for the parent to assist the child a little bit until he can know for sure that that word is cat? Is it okay to provide assistance to the child?
It differs. It's a case-by-case scenario. What I would suggest is pointing to the letter first, seeing if the child can figure it out on their own first with little prompting. So where you point to C, they respond the sound that C makes, and then you keep going until they can actually blend it all together. So if they're seeing C, they'll say k, and then T, k, at, cat. So then they start to figure it out together, where they're problem solving on their own.
And these are skills. So it sounds like to me that you can actually teach a child to learn how to read even before they get in kindergarten, if the parents would do this every day. About how much time should a child, or parents, spend teaching the child these various concepts a day?
It depends on your child. I mean, 15 minutes would be recommended, but if you see that your child is reaching a frustration level, I would stop, because again, you want it to be fun.
Right, okay.
So even if it's 5 minutes before bed, or when they wake up, or before they brush their teeth, whenever they want to read, go. I mean, it doesn't have to be even from a book. It could be words around your house. You can do it as a scavenger hunt. Just make it fun. If the child thinks that it's boring and they become frustrated, it's really no help to them.
Or even identifying some signs as you're riding down the street, like the word stop.
Yes.
Normally you wouldn't see go, but you will see stop and exit, things of that nature.
Or even at the grocery store, you might let them pick something out. If they can read a word that you guys have went through or gone over at home. So just things like that. You know your child, what motivates them, and just keep it going, keep it fun.
So now, after these CVC words, what do we work on then? Now, are we beginning to say that words have meaning, moving from identifying words to words actually having meaning, so that the kids can develop, beginning to comprehend stories when they can start reading on their own?
Yes, and they'll start to see that, because the more they start knowing what the words are and the more they become fluent readers where they're not struggling, they'll see that it starts to make sense. So a lot of children will start to read a word they don't necessarily know, just like the example with CVC words. They have no idea what it is. They see 3 letters, or to them a bunch of letters, if they're not even familiar with all of their sounds. But once they start to put it together like a puzzle piece, it's almost like that immediate light bulb. Oh, cat, I know what a cat is. And so you can ask them further
is
questions.
that just a question that you would ask just to check to make sure that they know that vocabulary? Well, you said, do you understand cat? I know what a cat is. Then you can point to the picture of the cat to make sure that the kid understands that these words are so associated with a particular object.
Yes, I would do that, but more so I would do that when they're starting to read words that are not familiar. So a lot of children will become familiar with a lot of CVC words and sight words. When they come up to a word that they don't really understand, that's completely out of context, then you can go and ask them. But I wouldn't ask them for every single word.
So, Lisa, if my child is saying the tree is big, shouldn't that flow a little bit better? Is that an indication that the child is not as comfortable as he should be with those words and word sounds? What can I do to fix that?
Practice, 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 and that's where modeling and fluency come in hand. When you model, you start to build that fluency. The more they read and the more that they are familiar with sight words and sounds and how to blend them together, that's where fluency builds. So it's just a matter of practicing. If the child is saying it completely correctly, but they're taking their time with it, just know that it's something that you have to keep practicing, and the child will eventually develop that, where they wouldn't be pausing as much in between words.
Okay. Now, moving from, I guess, fluency to comprehension, making sure that the child understands the story. Now, as a parent, do I question the kid as I'm reading the story to him, or do I have a set of questions at the end of the story to ask my child? What is the best way to do that?
I believe the best way to do that is asking questions before the story to get them excited, as I mentioned before. And what I would suggest is to look through the pages, ask the child questions just to get them excited about reading. While you're reading the story, if they made some kind of conclusion or prediction as to what would happen in the story, go back to that. So do you remember when you thought the story would be about this? Do you think that now? Or what's happening to Johnny now? You did say or mention that Johnny was sad because he was crying, but why is he sad? And just asking questions as you go so that they can become familiar with applying it to what's happening, so that they understand that I'm not reading just to read words. I'm reading so that it can make sense, so that I can understand what I'm reading eventually, so that I can move that to writing.
It seems by asking that why question, is that part of critical thinking that we're trying to develop in kids?
Yes, when you ask a child an open-ended question where that's where your whys and your what happened questions come in hand, you start to build the child for success. You start to develop their mind. Whereas if you ask them a question where they would have to answer yes or no, they could guess and you still wouldn't know. So really just seeing where they are, even so that you can direct them and take them further, is very important.
Well, thank you, Ms. Garrigas. And parents, I hope that you have found these tips to be very helpful in preparing your kid to become a lifelong reader. Stay tuned for our next segment.
This show is brought to you by Boricua Beer, coming to your local retailer in September.
I am for the child who's had 7 addresses in a single year, because she's in foster care, because her father abused her, and her mother couldn't believe her. She is the child I am for. I am a volunteer child advocate. I am you.
Florida residents call toll-free 866-341-1425.
Good evening and welcome to another segment of EduTV. I am your host, Greg Perkins. Today's guest is Miss Joanna Rodriguez. She is a bilingual specialist at Poinciana High School. Whew. Bilingual specialist, formerly known as ESOL. Okay, what I'd like to do, Joanna, talk a little bit about ELL, right? And then we are going to get into sheltered instruction. What is it? How does it work? I've been reading a lot of reports that Central Florida has an increasing number of Hispanic students where English is not their first language.
That is
correct. And you've been a teacher for a number of years. So tell me a little bit about your teacher background and tell me what you've been able to do with your students to help them to transition to these more rigorous standards.
Perfect. Well, I've been a teacher for 10 years now. I used to teach in Puerto Rico. I taught there for 8 years, then I decided to move here, and I've been teaching here in Osceola County for 2 years now. I used to teach English in Puerto Rico. It's basically the same, but it's seen from another perspective, not the same perspective as here. But that's what we do. And yes, we do have a lot of Hispanic students here. I was reading over the other day and I saw in Florida Trends that the amount of incoming students is very related to the economical situation of countries like Puerto Rico, Venezuela, Mexico. So we know that that number is going to be increasing if we go back and take a closer look into Puerto Rico's situation right now.
Now, so you were a teacher in Puerto Rico?
Yes, I was.
How long did you teach in Puerto Rico?
8 years.
You taught 8 years?
Yes.
Now, Puerto Rico is part of the United States.
Yes, it is.
Okay. I don't know a lot about that system. Can you educate me in terms of, are the kids taught in English, Spanish, both? So walk me through that.
That is a good question. Well, Puerto Rico, everybody speaks Spanish there, even though English is also one of the official language there, and we teach English from 1st grade to 12th grade. The truth is that they only take English for 45 minutes a day, 5 days a week. That's all they get. And at home, they mainly speak Spanish. So they don't see English as to learn a second language. They see it just as to get a good grade and pass a subject in school.
Is that K through 12 they take that?
Yes, K to 12. So that's why you see that most of our students sadly come out of school or they move here and they claim that they don't know English. They are great grammatically speaking, however, they do have huge gaps when it comes to speaking.
Right. Because they may be very intelligent.
Yes, they are.
In their native language.
Oh, yes, they
However,
are.
when you're faced with a language barrier, because if you drop me off in Russia right now, I make all F's because
Actually,
I can't speak Russian.
Exactly. That is the situation we're seeing right now with our ESOL students. Even though the title is bilingual specialist, is the same thing as ESOL. But that's the main problem we're having, or I've seen in school, is that they think that because they cannot speak the language, they don't have the skills, they don't have the knowledge, they lack the knowledge, and that is not true. That's where shelter education comes in play, and we're going to talk about it later on.
No, you can segue into that because I like that you said that, and I think now a lot of kids, they may have been telling the teacher, oh, I don't know English that well, to try to get out of something. But with our global economy now, you have to be proficient
Yes.
and be able to take these tests and graduate.
Yes.
So yeah, that's a perfect segue into shelter learning, and we can continue the conversation about how you guys are meeting the needs of ELL students. So let's talk a little bit about shelter learning.
You know, when I start with my students, I always like to cite a quote I saw once when I moved here that it said, it was by Frank Smith, if I'm not mistaken. It said, one language set you up for the corridor of life, two languages open all the doors along the way.
Yep.
And I always try to encourage them to see these as a new opportunity of getting something else. They will have more tools on their behalf when it's time for them to go to college, when it's time for them to go to real life, because it's way different.
Oh, yeah, or get a job. If she's
Get a job,
bilingual,
exactly.
And you have the degree, and you work in Miami or Orlando.
Exactly.
I'm going to go with the person.
So
who
as
speaks
an
the
ESOL
language.
teacher, not only you deal with academic content, but you also have to deal with motivation. You also have to, some of them are afraid to tell where they're coming from. Some of them try to hide their background. And not only we deal with academic content, not only we teach them English, but we also teach them that it's important for them to maintain their main language and be proficient in both of them. So shelter education is something that helps them out with that. Why? Because shelter education is basically a set of strategies. Every teacher has their strategies, right? So the ones designed for shelter education allows the teacher of content areas to lower the linguistic demands, but it's not at all compromising the rigor of the class. So the student will be getting great content material, which is important for the new standards that you've heard about, but at the same time you're teaching them English and you're lowering the class in talking about linguistic, you're lowering the linguistic of the class in a way that they can truly comprehend and understand where you're coming from, what are you trying to teach them, and they get engaged. Because if you lower that demand, if you lower the linguistic demand, they will be able to risk it. They will be able to try it. When they see they can do it, and as they keep on improving, then you start seeing magic. And they're ready to go to mainstream. That's why shelter education, I believe on it. That's why it's so important.
Now, how the students chosen who participate in the sheltered education program?
That is...
So let's say, let me give you a scenario. I'm from Puerto Rico.
Yes.
Okay, I just got here. I'm going to go enroll in school, and I have limited English.
Then you should be placed in shelter education. Okay. If you've been here more than 1 year, you at least should know, you should be at least in the pre-production stage or production state where you should have about 500 to 1,000 words already in your pocket. So you should be in an ESOL class, but not in shelter education. However, shelter education doesn't hurt anyone. By the other hand, it allows you, it empowers the student to keep on acquiring knowledge without being scared of it, you see? But shelter education is designed for students that just came in. They're new. We want them to get confident enough to get the basic to create a social connection with other students in the school. And in the classroom, while we're teaching content areas, we are developing those skills at the same time. So it's meant for those students, the ones that just came in, the ones that are not fully prepared to go out there because they can't even pronounce a whole sentence, basically.
Now, how do you challenge the kids? So you teach this class in both English and Spanish?
Well, that will be bilingual education.
Okay. What is the difference between sheltered and bilingual?
In order to be bilingual, all the students will have to have the same background, the same language.
Okay.
They will have to come from the same place and speak the same language.
Okay. Like
Actually,
a class of Haitian Creole and a class of
exactly,
Spanish.
because the teacher will be able to teach the class in both languages at the same time, which I love it. But here in Florida, we have our ESOL students are not only from Puerto Rico or Venezuela, I also have Brazilians and so on.
Oh, wow.
But last year, my first year I had Brazilians, I had people that only spoke Creole and
all in one class?
All in one class. But technology helped us a lot in the classroom, talking about those areas. However, last year, for example, when we started shelter education, most of my students spoke Spanish, most of them. Only one of them didn't. So what we do is that we teach the class, we start the class, we try to use cognates. Cognates are words that are basically the same in English and Spanish, or the main language in Spanish, and English, I'm sorry. So I had to look for words that will be familiar for them so they will not be lost at the beginning.
Can you give me an example of one of those words?
Sure, like hospital in Spanish will be hospital.
Oh,
you see?
okay. That's a cognate?
That's a cognate, exactly. And there are false cognates like characters. Whenever I say characters, they will think that it's your state of mind. But actually, you know, that is the persons or the people or the animals that are making up the story. So that's a false cognate. And we teach them cognates and false cognates to help them out, at least get a little understanding of what's going on. And just letting them know, hey, you already know some of the words. It's just a matter of using them on the right moment, right?
Joanna, this is EduTV, and I learned what a cognate was today. And I know the staff didn't know what a cognate is.
Well,
so
now
you're
you know.
educating us. You are educating us.
So we use a lot of those strategies, you know, cognates. We use a lot of body language. We Hispanics, we talk with our hands, as you can see. So body language is a very important thing to do when you're teaching ESOL students. Not only that, we use visuals. I mean, if I am talking about a new concept, I need them to see it. I need them to feel it. We use reciprocal teaching. So I teach it to you, then I let you teach it to your friends, so just to see that you comprehend. Constantly when we're teaching, we stop just to check on comprehension. We use total body response, like we get them involved, we get them doing movements, wall walking, things like that, you know. So they're having fun. They are allowed to respond in their main language.
Okay.
Then when they respond, I repeat it in English.
Oh, okay.
So they get the feedback at the moment and they repeat it after me. And it at the beginning, the new ones, you will see them scared, but as the class goes on and as they see—
I'm scared right now just listening to you. That's a lot of work. See,
It is.
I really respect teachers. I don't like it when people say, oh, teachers, they get off at 3 o'clock and then they have some
But we never stop
But
working, right?
I know. I'm just listening to you. And the poor kids, yeah, that's got to be somewhat frightening for them. So how long do the students stay in the sheltered program?
Shelter program is meant to be no longer than 2 years. However, they remain in the ESOL class.
Okay.
They remain in the ESOL class. Basically, I was just looking for information on why not all the schools have the shelter education system in place. And something you just mentioned earlier is the key. Not all teachers are willing to go through the hazard of dealing with the main language and then translate it and then give them some time to process and repeat it. But shelter education is meant for them to be just 1 to 2 years. However, we know that a student, in order to be proficient in a second language, will take them anywhere from 4 to 10 years.
Wow.
So please keep that in mind when it comes to state testing.
But that's in conflict. Now, do ESOL and kids in the shelter learning program, are their scores counted as part of the school grade?
Yes, they are held
I know they were trying to change that at one point.
They have to do something about it because
that's not fair. Right?
One of the biggest things that scare them the most, especially my seniors, I received seniors during the middle of the year and they've worked very hard where they were, I don't know, let's say Puerto Rico, for example, Venezuela, and they work very hard for, you know, to accomplish this diploma, and then they come here and they are required to take the same test exams and the exams of every native English speaker. So we need to do something about it, don't you think?
You know what? We have the platform here, and that really does not make sense in education. So you're welcome to come back. Solutions, no, political friends. Seriously, because this is something that I've decided I want to commit my life to. It's just helping kids, all kids. And that's got to be
just think about this.
Right.
As teachers, we're required to do differentiation in our classrooms, right? So you might ask, probably, or you were an educator, I know you know, but probably the person who's seeing us right now doesn't know what does that look like.
Right. And what I like to do, I hate to cut you off, but we are running out of time. But I definitely would like to invite you back so we can talk about this.
Sure.
And thank you guys for joining us. I learned what a cognate is, and she is a very special teacher. Thank you for
having
joining us on EduTV. Good night.
Hi, I'm Gloria Puerta from Feed and Fortify Community Organization today, and Latino role model. And be yourself. Try to have your purpose in life and be a legacy of service.
My name is Milagros Rivera, and I'm a founder and mentor of Daughters of the Mighty King mentoring program for young girls. I am inspired and encouraged to be here because I want to see a new generation rise up